Greetings, my people. Greetings, my people. Today is May 24th, Friday, May 24th, 2024, 12:13 p.m. And I titled this one, Are You a Gatekeeper? And I'm not talking about celebrities, just period, or all together. I'm talking about everyday people. Um, And the inspiration behind this was watching the Art of Dialogue. Shout out to the Art of Dialogue. And they were interviewing Freddie P from Making the Band. And I looked at a few of them. And I mentioned this in my last video, speaking on Umar Johnson dismissing domestic violence. And I spoke on how Freddie P, and I went back and heard it for myself. How Freddie P was saying that Diddy threatened him by saying he could buy up his whole block and get him touched. And it brought me to another video that he was talking about. And he was talking about um, the Cassie situation. And he was saying that, you know, Diddy is that's what he did to her in public. So you can imagine when he took her around the corner, what he did to her in private. And he goes on to say that most people try to contain themselves publicly, but privately is where it really goes down. And then he touched on, keeping that same energy and how Jay-Z ruined or attempts to ruin Chris Brown. And his wasn't even caught on film. And then he goes to say something that, really is the guts of this conversation. That he was saying, how is it that you can't feel it? How is it that you still have guys championing for it and making excuses? And he said something specifically. He said, how is it that you make excuses for people that touch children? How is it? And that brings me to what I'm talking about. Are you a gatekeeper and don't even know it? Because I look at this, and like I said, I speak to the mentality. I don't speak to the person per se. I speak to the mentality. And that's what's wrong with us, because a lot of times we talk about society when we are the individuals that make up this society, right? So we talk about how black people are, how black people are effed up in general. Well, there are a collective of black people that make excuses for pedophilia. And it's kind of hard for me to wrap my brain around how could a man make an excuse for a little child being touched or a woman being beaten or, you know, anything of that magnitude, a woman being R-worded. I don't know if I can say that or that's what blocked my videos from going higher, but rape, and I struggle with that because, I know that these platforms have guidelines, but I feel like that's why your mind is so controlled, right? Because they tell you constantly what you can and can't say. And I'm not saying that you should just say any and everything, but there are so many sanctions on us as black people, and we fall in line and say, well, you can't say that. We get real proper when it's rules and regulations for certain things, but back to the topic at hand, when there are real-time situations, that's when the heart of a person kicks in. So, like, for instance, whenever we talk about maybe these celebrities, maybe we talk about R. Kelly, whenever we talk about Bill Cosby, whenever we talk about, there's always what we can't do is stick to the topic, because we all, and I think we all do it in a sense of saying, yo, well, they didn't say nothing about this, or how could they let this go in this? Because it's their system. Now I'll give you an example. So many people rolled John Morant and dogged out John Morant for me for being a younger person, doing dumb things at a young age, with just flashing a pistol. We don't, and it's still alleged if that was a real pistol or not. And so many of our people came down, they came down, they brought the hammer down. It was no excuses with something like that. We have no, we have zero patience for the youth, right? And their mistakes. Like I was saying, when it comes to Deion Sanders and the young man Cormani McClain, you go to that young man's page, you have grown men that's twice his age, old enough to be his father, coming down on him, telling him so bad how terrible of a person he is. But yet, when it comes to a guy that's touching kids that you like, there's all this kind of support. There's all these excuses. There's all these rationales of his mindset. But there is no understanding of a youth mindset. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the problem with our society, Western society, because we have so many people, like I've always said, it's not about your denomination. We do all of this about denominations, all about sects. We do all of this. Are you a Hebrew? Are you a Christian? Are you a Moor? Are you African centered? Are you Camite? Are you this? Are you that? When none of that matters. That's not really what it's about. The thing is about the truth versus the lie. The truth, the thing it's about is corruption, and those that speak on the corruption and those that kind of cover it up. The keepers and the hiders. The keepers and the hiders, right? So when it comes to, and this is why we will never become a real nation as Black people and get oppression off our foot. It's not that white people are more superior. They are more, how can I say? They're more in tune with their their agenda. They have a collective agenda, which is white supremacy and white domination. So we may think, and it's back to that public and private analysis. We may think that white people are the pinnacle. White people do everything right. Oh, the way Elon Musk does this. Oh, the way Jeff Bezos. That's public. Because they understand like public and private, right? Just like they understand. And I was talking to one of my lady friends, and she was bringing up an example on the black wife effect trend. And for so much, like I said, this is why we look at them as so much better. That if you switch races or you switch genders, that the treatment is going to be better, when really it's not. Because it's like, okay, this is what Westerners or white people understand that much, that if you are publicly shaming as Black men and Black women, if you are publicly shaming your opposite gender, meaning males and females or men and women, right? They are just intelligent enough to know that if we want to take them over, we're not going to behave and say those same things like you, because number one, it would expose us for the prejudiced racists that we are. Racism is real covert. Even though it's overt, it's mostly covert, which is why people hate Donald Trump but love Joe Biden. Because Joe Biden is the covert racist and Trump is the overt. This is why you hear so many people will denounce him, and you're seeing so many people during election time just usher in and be ready for Joe Biden, because they couldn't take the open realness of what America is. I always say, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. Anybody that knows me, I'm not a fan of him. But what I do respect is that rattlesnake that's rattling and saying, yo, this is how I get down. And we are so in a need to control a narrative so much. We always want to force opinions when it's about just simply understanding, right? So back to what Freddie Pete was saying, and he said something, and it kind of reminded me of Nana Kuntu or Dale Jones, who wrote Culture Bandits. And in one of his lectures, when he's talking about the American Nigger Factory, and if anybody hasn't seen that, check that out. And he says, how is it that we don't feel it? How is it that we don't feel what that child goes through? Because the technology of Western society voids you of that. It makes you rationalize. Because whenever it's R. Kelly, right, the narrative gets thrown. What is the favorite thing they like to say? You know it. Where were the parents, right? And that's a valid question. But what we do, much like I was saying with Umar Johnson when it came to domestic violence, we minimize it. And then we go to shaming the victim, which is a Western tactic. Did they not do it? Did they not do it with what's his name? I'm having a knowledge overload. The one that they kneeled, George Floyd. And they used that one-eyed, cockeyed weasel, Charleston White, to get out. And this is what I said. The selectiveness, the selective outrage, right? So when Kanye West comes out and says they hit him with the fentanyl, it wasn't that. Now I don't agree with that, because I don't agree with the inhumane treatment of kneeling on him, right? Like there are certain people that if we like them or if we don't, we can render a judgment just like that. People can say, I don't like Kanye. Boosie is loud. He said slavery was a choice. He said slavery was a choice. He said slavery was a choice. Much like, and that's the technology of the media. If you were to go back to actually listen to what he said in its entirety, he broke down what he said, building up to saying, that sounds like a choice, don't it? But the media hit it and said, he said slavery was a choice. Much like they just did Anthony Edwards when after they beat the Denver Nuggets, and he said, yo, it's going to be fun. I got Kyrie. Now, he did call out Kyrie. But I saw an article that says, I locked up Jamal Murray and Kyrie is next. And he never said that. So you see how the media will twist your words. I've been saying this. I keep giving out this book. I'm going to give you information. Propaganda by Edward Bernays. And please get this book. It's even on YouTube, YouTube audio. You get this information in you. Stop being so touchy-feely and understand. We feel this is why we can't move the ball forward, because we're so sensitive and charged up about the wrong things. The things that we need to be charged up about, we're dismissive. And the things that we sometimes, man, it ain't even that serious, we're charged up about it. Because most of the time you're programmed to always be offended, especially if, like I said, I'm speaking to that mentality. And that mentality permeates inside of you. You're not listening to what I'm saying. You're thinking I'm talking to you. But it is the mentality that allows children to be touched. Because what do? We go start finding Elvis Presley. We go start finding Woody Allen. We go start finding all of these Westerners, the originators of this behavior. And say, why aren't they locking theirs up? So if they're not locking theirs up, ours shouldn't feel. When on both sides, children are feeling the same trauma. The same thing that Drake Bell felt, who spoke out in that Quiet on the Set documentary, is the same thing that R. Kelly victimizers felt. It's the same thing that the everyday person who was molested by her uncle, somebody in her family, pain is pain. Taking of the innocence is taking of the innocence. It's just on a more wider scale. That's why we care about it so much, because we can remember certain songs that Diddy produced that made us feel good, because music has played a vital part in our lives, right? Music has been a part. We can all remember certain soundtracks to our lives, right? I can remember he had this song that I used to like with Mario Winans called Best Friends. So, like I said, there are certain songs. R. Kelly, one of my favorite songs by him is I Wish. And even with the loss of my mom, I feel it more than now. But guess what? It's not that I'm being choosy. I stand on principle. I still haven't ate a Popeye's chicken sandwich because the way they program the people to behave. It's a principle that you stand on. I don't care if it's Jay-Z. I don't care who it is. If you did that, I'm canceling you. I don't, because guess what? That energy, we talk about energy so much, right? That if their souls and their hearts ain't right and they're singing to you and singing into your ear, into your subconscious, I believe that energy can transfer off to you. He called himself the Pied Piper. And go back to the Walt Disney, who was a big pedophile, allegedly. Even though we know. But go back and understand what the Pied Piper really was, what the Pied Piper really did. They can play in your face, and guess what they do? In true Western white supremacist fashion, they tell you you did it to yourself. That's why some people today still say, "Well, man, you can't blame, you can't keep blaming the society to conditions, man. People doing it to themselves. Nobody wants to be crazy. They're made crazy." Keep saying. Edward Bernays. See, in order for us, we talk about waking up, waking people up, waking the masses up. The masses don't need to be awake. The ones whose hearts and souls are correct are the ones that need to be awake. How is it that we don't feel the con game of all of these I'm gonna say D-list conscious celebrities that get in and run the same play? They run the same play as the last one. Because, like I said, they understand how fragile the black conscience is. They understand, like one of my brothers always say, the worship gene. That we're looking, I don't care how conscious you are. Let me say this is just my opinion. But if you are of a certain age and you consider yourself of a certain conscious level, because there are so many levels, different levels to consciousness, right? But if you consider yourself a mid or high conscious level and you're still listening to people for them to tell you, not listening to people for information, because we must listen to people and their information. But when you're looking for them to be your guidance and tell you what to do and how to think and how to feel, maybe you ain't so awake as you think. Maybe you sleepwalking. Right? So when I was listening to him say that, it hit me, and I was like, and sometimes that's what I do. When I will be listening to something and it'll hit me, and that's what will spark me to create these videos. And I more so the reason sometimes I really don't like my stuff being put out publicly, and I know that this is what comes with it. But this is why I don't like to do it like live, because there are so many distractions in the comments of people and their feelings. And you're just trying to speak and people are commenting and they're being negative and they're being dismissive. And another thing that he said that stuck out, he says, why would y'all guys protect that? You know, does it have to be your sister for y'all to feel that? And I think, and I think that's what it truly is. It has to hit you directly for you to really feel it. It has to be somebody, and then you will understand it better. But because we're so disconnected from each other, we don't feel that connection, right? We don't feel that connection at all. So we say, hey, that's their business. until it flips around and becomes you, and then you perhaps are looking for somebody to help you. But were you helpful in that position, or were you dismissive? You don't like people to be dismissive to you, or maybe you do. But I just want, I'm not going to be long because I could get on to this, but I just wanted to leave y'all something to think about. And man, if a cat like Freddie P, who's not running around saying he's all of these conscious things and not professing to be the most requested person in the world, if he can understand, why can't you? Peace.